The whole sort of campaign has been about mystery. The film plays out very much like a mystery. As you're watching it, you think you're watching one thing, and then it shifts and becomes something else, and it shifts and becomes another thing. So I like that, and so I don't want to give too much away about what it is, and so I kind of encourage people.
I will. I've been doing it all day.
Okay. I encourage people to, avoid spoilers and just, if you're up for the roller coaster ride, come take it.
So Jen, what's the movie about?
When he first came to me, it's allegorical. It's these huge metaphors that are universal, biblical, and he's created a narrative through them and placed everything into this under the house. It was just incredible and unique. I had never heard anything like it.
How far you're willing to take people on this journey must have been tricky for you.
That line is always a tricky line, and there'll always be some people who will think I cross it, and there will be other people that don't think it's enough. All my films always have that. I had a big sort of debate with the studio in Black Swan over the scene where Natalie's legs snap back. But I remember the gasps from the crowd and the screams and the cries and all the weird reactions. For me, that was the great reward. So there's definitely, more than any film I've done, we've gotten really close to that line and really are pushing it. The film does come with a warning. It's a very intense ride, and only take it if you want to see something very new and very different. It's become a little bit of a fiction that I wrote in 5 days. It's true. I had this idea. I didn't tell anyone about it. I didn't tell my producing partners who I share everything with, including things you don't want to know. And it was just sort of haunting me, the idea. And then I had this 5-day weekend where I was all alone in my house, and I said, you know what? I thought about Genesis, I thought about Revelations, I thought about all these things, and it sort of gave me all these ideas for structuring it. And then I showed it to those guys, and they were like, it's crazy, but there's something there, we should do it. And then I showed Jennifer, and she was like, in. And then we were like, oh shoot, we actually have to make it. So we really did try to rework it a lot. We talked to some friends who were writers and got their notes and had some input from them. But as soon as you started to pull it apart, it kind of lost its structure. There was some type of weird dream logic that sort of came that I think captured the emotion of that moment, which was like, Ari calls it impotent rage. I don't like to be called impotent, but I call it restless rage. And I think that's kind of what it was all about. And then, to be fair, it was very symbolic, but part of the requirement for Jennifer and Javier Bardem was that we were going to do 3 months rehearsal. And in that 3 months, character started to come alive.
We had a blast. I loved Michelle. It took me about 2 days to kind of get over her beauty, to be able to go up to her and be like, hi. But she's fantastic. She's very warm. She's normal. She's a mom and just a really smart, great woman. And, and it was very fun with Ed and Javier. We had a really good time. I know it probably doesn't seem like it from the movie, but we had a really good time filming it. There was only one scene in the whole movie that I had trouble kind of snapping out of, and if you see the movie, you'll understand what I'm talking about. It was Ed and Michelle certainly made me better, and Javier as well. I mean, this movie kind of pulled me apart and put me back together. Working with Darren, it was just a completely different character from anything I've ever done and anything that I felt like was inside me. I don't even know where to begin on what I learned from this movie. I mean, I learned to create different aspects of a personality that don't really exist. I wouldn't have been able to do it if it weren't for Darren. I wouldn't have been able to access that or find that. And the advice I would give myself about the industry, probably make sure you know how much else everyone else is getting paid before you say yes. Yeah, I've never done anything like that, and it was incredible because every day we talked about our characters, and every day we went deep into everything. We discovered new things. We had a chalk outline of the house. The movie has its own language with the camera. There's everything's from my point of view. I think there's only 2 masters in the whole.
Yeah, the whole film is shot either over her shoulder, on her face, or what she's looking at.
So it has its own language that we had to get used to, and we had to learn this kind of choreography with the cameramen. So we would walk through the chalk outline of the house, so that by the time we got there and we got in the house, we all kind of flowed as one. I've never been on a movie that has a language with the camera. I've never been on a movie where the camera would be so close to my damn face.
66 minutes of the 2-hour-long film is a close-up of Jennifer, and you're never bored. You're never claustrophobic. That's all because of her. Shooting 16 millimeter is just an amazing, it's incredibly technically difficult at this point to shoot 16, even though that's how a lot of us as students started, was on 16, but now barely anyone processes it anymore. No one really deals with it anymore. How many labs are left?
Nobody even, it's almost as if nobody even knows how to deal with it anymore. It's like, you know, the people who work in film at the labs, you know, they're all retired and gone, and the people who are at the labs now work in strictly the digital format. So it's like sometimes you'd bring, especially 16, to a lab, and there's nobody there who knows how to handle it.
Well, I think it's beautiful. I think the problem with all these beautiful cameras are that the images end up very, very similar, and everything's starting to look exactly the same. But with 16, you have an immediate patina and an immediate abstraction, an immediate thing that makes it a piece of work. And then if you get a DP like Matthew Libatique, you know, I remember when we were timing, I was like, oh, the whole film feels like slightly burnt butter, or the cover of a really good surface of a good tiramisu or something. It had kind of has that feeling. It has a feeling that nothing else there in the marketplace has, and I think that was the objective of this film, was to make a unique movie, because people, you know, including myself, we keep complaining about how we keep seeing the same movie over and over again, so we really wanted to go and do something different. We might have gone too far, but we definitely made a different ride in the amusement park.
If you were ever to work again in a film and you could choose the genre, which one would you choose, and to work together again? Thank you.
She told me she would never work with me again.
That was just when I was healing after the movie. I think you could do a comedy. I'd like to see you do a comedy.
Knock, knock.
Oh, jeez.
Actually, there's a lot of knock, knock in this movie. Actually, a lot of humor in the movie. That was what was interesting. The Brits. Are there any Brits here? But did you see the movie? They thought it was really funny. The Brits were like, it's a comedy.
Yeah, I'm British. Did you see the movie?
Was there humor on the set? I mean, did you guys mess around at all?
I mean, it's the same team that's been making these movies all the time, and so it's like a family. And when we call cut, you know, everyone makes fun of each other, and you know. But the only time we get serious is between action and cut. The rest of the time, we're having a good time.
So I was in immediately. I've been a fan of his for years. I think he's bold and brave. So I've been a fan. So once he just told me of the ideas that were floating around in his head, I said yes. And then I got a script, and when I read it, I threw it across the room and told him he had severe psychological problems, but it's a masterpiece. No, I didn't have any hesitations.
I think the first 6 letters I wrote was mother. You know, I just typed that in before I even started in lowercase at the beginning, and then I sat there for a second, and I put the exclamation point. Then it became really part of it. The reason there's a lowercase letter is there is a reason. And I haven't really seen anyone pick up on the reason yet, but if you look closely at the movie, you will figure out the reason. All the clues are there. And then I realized actually, because I don't know if you've seen the film, the exclamation point is sort of like a line down and a dot. And I realized actually the exclamation point is kind of the structure of the film, just sort of a straight down line into a hit at the bottom. So I was like, oh, that's kind of cool too. It was always about mother. The film was always about mother. That was always the goal, was to tell the story of not your mother, not my mother, but our mother, the mother that has given us all life, and to tell the history of humanity with mother in an allegory.
I don't think the allegory is a spoiler. I think it really aids you. We've gone back and forth on this, and I think it would be a shame to go see this movie and not know what you're looking at. There's so many things when we were on set where even I would be like, oh, I wonder if that's that, or I would hear, you know, in the second movie, or the second time I saw the movie, we have a sequel. The second time I saw the movie, I heard Javier's character say, well, where will they go? Where will they go? And then I realized, oh, this is Earth. There is nowhere else. There's nowhere else for anybody to go. I think it's, if you know the allegory, share the allegory. I think it's beautiful. I think it's powerful and genius. I don't see it as a spoiler, but maybe you'll.
This is not the type of movie that you know, a pet peeve with a few people on this stage is when I go to a movie, because I'm really gullible in movies and I get lost in them, and they lean over and they say, "Oh, this is what's going to happen," and they ruin the movie for me. No matter what happens, you can't have this movie ruined for you. I promise you, it's really weird and different. And so, I feel free. Just tell people it's an experience to have. That's what I want. I was talking to. But the head of marketing at Paramount, and she said something really cool. Because I've been saying like this is that weird loop-de-loop roller coaster ride in the amusement park. She said, you know what? You built this roller coaster outside of the park, and it's operated by the really weird guy. So you should be really worried about going on it. And I kind of like that type of analysis too.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys.
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey You Guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yes.
Nice.
Hey You Guys!